Thank you, David. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, no, thanks. Could we start with kind of a few minute version of the problem and just as you see it? And again, David's going to be a speaker with us in Nashville, so you're going to hear a bigger, more in-depth version of this, but just in general, the problem facing all of us.
Yeah, the real problem is as a country, we just spend too much money. We've got $34 trillion of debt. I mean, the real problem is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. There's a $200 trillion underfunding of those programs, but none of the debt that we currently have has anything to do with those programs. So we've managed to accumulate $34 trillion of debt and not even really begin to solve any of the huge overarching problems that our country is going to be facing over the next 75 years. So we've got 34 trillion. We're going to add another 20 trillion over the next 10 years alone. We're marching into a future where, according to a Penn Wharton study, once we hit 200% debt to GDP, no combination of raising taxes or reducing spending will arrest the financial collapse of our country. So here's the problem. Every year that goes by where we fail to rein in spending or fundamentally reform Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid it means the fix on the back end prior to 2043 or so is just going to be that much more severe and draconian. And what most experts are saying is that the fix is going to come in one of the following, probably several of the following approaches. We're going to raise taxes, probably dramatically so, reduce spending, dramatically so, or some combination of the two. So the question becomes, if tax rates, according to all these experts, and when I say experts, who are we talking about? I mentioned the Penn Wharton study. Former Comptroller General of the federal government, David Walker, probably knows more about the fiscal outlook of our country than just about anyone else on the planet. He basically said, look, tax rates have to double, and they have to double by 2030. And every year that they don't double by 2030 means the fix, like I said, is that much more severe. So each year matters. And we're marching into a future where, come 2026, taxes are going to go up, but that's not even what I'm worried about. I'm worried about what's likely to happen in 2030, 2031, 2032, which is when a lot of economists think there's going to be this perfect storm of baby boomers marching out of the workforce onto the rolls of entitlement program. Interest rates are probably going to skyrocket. A lot of bad stuff's going to probably happen around 2030. So I'm just telling my clients and prospects, look, we got to get our house in order. If we're going to sort of shield our assets from the impact of higher taxes down the road, we have to be proactive and intentional. So if, for example, you talked about how, you get this Money Guide Pro score that says, hey, they're in great shape. But what if that means that they have $3 million sitting in their IRAs or 401ks? The analogy I like to use is that it's like your retirement savings are sitting on the train tracks. There's a massive freight train bearing down on it. We know when that freight train is going to hit 2030 or so. We know in what form it's going to arrive, massively higher taxes, and we know what we have to do in the meantime to get our money removed from the tracks. And so you may have $3 million in your IRA or 401k, but unless you can accurately predict what tax rates are going to be in the year you take that money out, you don't really know how much money you have. And it's pretty hard to plan for retirement if you don't know how much money you have. So the gist of The Power of Zero, which is this book right here, the gist of it is, look, we're marching into a higher tax rate environment. And in a high tax rate environment, in a rising tax rate environment, there's an ideal amount of money to have in your tax deferred bucket. We don't want to whittle that down to zero, because when you retire, you're still going to have a standard deduction, which means that you want to be in a position where your IRA or 401k produces an RMD that can be offset by your standard deduction so that those RMDs are tax-free. We don't want to get all the money out of there, but we do want to systematically reposition, if you got $3 million, most of that money to the tax-free bucket. You want to reposition it slowly enough that you don't rise into a tax bracket that gives you heartburn, but you want to do it quickly enough that you get all the heavy lifting done before tax rates go up for good. So that's the problem, and that's sort of the warning cry I've been raising as I present this across the country.
No, thank you. And again, that's you gave a longer version with more details, and I know a few of the credibility of the sources is what really grabbed me in terms of this is what's going to happen. We don't know exactly how much, we don't know exactly when. I know elections, and what if Trump wins? Okay, does that mean the can is kicked down the road even further? What if it's a blue wave? What does that mean?